Imagine being so rich that simply giving away your money changed the economy of an entire country. It sounds impossible, but more than 700 years ago, it actually happened. In the 14th century, an enormous caravan crossed the endless Sahara desert. Thousands of people and camels carried a fortune unlike anything the world had ever seen. Not silver, not jewels, gold, an unimaginable amount of it. Leading this extraordinary journey was a man whose wealth would become legendary. His name was Mansa Musa, the emperor of the Mali Empire. Today, the world's richest people are measured in billions of dollars. Names like Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos dominate the headlines. But historians believe Mansa Musa's fortune was so vast that it cannot be accurately compared to any modern billionaire. His empire controlled some of the richest gold deposits on Earth and dominated the trade routes connecting Africa with the rest of the world. But the most remarkable part of his story wasn't simply how much gold he owned. It was what happened when he decided to share it. One journey across the desert, one visit to Cairo, and one act of generosity that changed an entire economy. So who was Mansa Musa? And how did an emperor from medieval West Africa become known as the richest person who ever lived? Let's travel back more than 700 years to discover the incredible story of the Mali Empire. More than 700 years ago, while much of the world was struggling through the Middle Ages, a powerful civilization was rising in West Africa. It was called the Mali Empire. At its peak, Mali became one of the richest and most influential empires on Earth, controlling vast territories and some of the largest known gold deposits of the medieval world. But gold alone did not make Mali powerful. Its strategic location connected Africa with North Africa and the Middle East through major trade routes crossing the Sahara Desert. Every caravan carried gold, salt, spices, textiles, and new ideas, turning Mali into a center of commerce, culture, and learning. Its cities attracted merchants, scholars, and travelers from across the known world, helping the empire grow richer and more influential with every passing year. At the heart of this remarkable civilization was a royal family that would produce one of history's greatest rulers. A young prince named Mansa Musa was born into a world of opportunity, but becoming the richest man who ever lived would require far more than inheritance. It would require vision, leadership, and the ability to guide one of the greatest empires the world had ever seen. His journey was only beginning. Before he became known as the richest man who ever lived, Mansa Musa was a young prince, born into one of Africa's most powerful kingdoms. Although he was born into royalty, becoming a great ruler required far more than wearing a crown. From an early age, he studied diplomacy, trade, economics, and military strategy, learning that the true strength of an empire came not only from its army, but from its people, its economy, and its connections with the outside world. Mali's wealth came from gold, but its success came from knowing how to use that wealth wisely. Its trade routes connected West Africa with North Africa and the Middle East, bringing valuable goods, knowledge, and opportunity to the empire. Then, everything changed. The previous ruler disappeared during a mysterious expedition across the Atlantic Ocean, leaving the empire without a leader. Mansa Musa became the 9th emperor of the Mali Empire. He inherited a vast kingdom rich in gold, resources, and opportunity. But instead of simply protecting what he had, he set out to make Mali greater than ever before. He expanded trade, invested in education, supported architecture, and strengthened the empire's influence across the region. Under his leadership, Mali entered a true golden age. Its cities flourished, trade expanded, scholars arrived from distant lands, and before long, the world would discover the extraordinary power of the Mali Empire through a journey that would make Mansa Musa's name legendary forever. After becoming the Emperor of Mali, Mansa Musa possessed everything a ruler could dream of: power, influence, and unimaginable wealth. In 1324, he set out on a pilgrimage to Mecca, a journey that would make his name known across the world. But this was no ordinary pilgrimage. According to historical accounts, tens of thousands of people traveled with him across the Sahara Desert, including soldiers, merchants, officials, servants, and religious scholars. Thousands of camels carried supplies, many of them loaded with enormous quantities of gold. The caravan stretched for miles, moving like an entire city through the desert. After weeks of travel, Mansa Musa arrived in Cairo. The city had never witnessed anything like it. Crowds filled the streets to catch a glimpse of the legendary emperor from West Africa and the extraordinary wealth that surrounded him. Known for his generosity, Mansa Musa freely distributed gold throughout the city. But his generosity came with an unexpected consequence. So much gold entered Cairo's economy that its value fell dramatically, disrupting prices for years afterward. Few individuals in history have ever possessed enough wealth to influence the economy of an entire city with a single visit. Yet Mansa Musa did exactly that. His pilgrimage introduced the Mali Empire to the wider world and transformed him into a living legend. But the greatest chapter of his story was still to come. When he returned home, he would invest his fortune in something far more valuable than gold itself. When Mansa Musa returned to the Mali Empire, he brought back more than memories of his remarkable journey. He returned with new ideas, new knowledge, and a vision for the future. Rather than using his immense wealth only to increase his own power, he invested in education, architecture, and culture. Across the empire, magnificent mosques, schools, and public buildings were constructed. Cities expanded, trade flourished, and knowledge spread faster than ever before. No city benefited more than Timbuktu. Once an important trading center, it soon became one of the greatest centers of learning in the medieval world. Scholars traveled from distant lands to study there, while its libraries preserved thousands of handwritten manuscripts covering mathematics, astronomy, medicine, law, philosophy, and theology. At a time when much of Europe was still in the Middle Ages, Timbuktu stood as a symbol of knowledge and discovery. For Mansa Musa, true wealth was never measured only in gold. Gold could build cities, but knowledge could shape generations. His investments transformed the Mali Empire into one of Africa's greatest civilizations. Merchants, travelers, and map makers carried stories of Mali across continents, and Mansa Musa became a symbol of extraordinary wealth and visionary leadership. His legacy was no longer just that of a king. It was the legacy of an empire that changed history. Every empire eventually faces the same enemy: time. Even the greatest civilizations rise, flourish, and eventually begin to fade. The Mali Empire was no exception. After Mansa Musa's reign, trade routes shifted, new kingdoms emerged, and over the centuries, the empire gradually lost the influence it once held. But while empires can disappear, legends often survive. More than 700 years later, historians are still asking the same question. How rich was Mansa Musa? The honest answer is, no one truly knows. Unlike modern billionaires, whose wealth can be measured through companies and financial records, Mansa Musa ruled an empire rich in gold, trade, land, and natural resources. Many historians believe his fortune simply cannot be converted into today's money. His wealth may have been beyond calculation. But perhaps that isn't what made him extraordinary. His greatest achievement was not the gold he owned. It was what he built with it. He invested in cities. He supported education. He transformed Timbuktu into one of the world's greatest centers of learning. His influence continued long after his lifetime. Today, the names of modern billionaires dominate the headlines. Yet centuries before any of them existed, an emperor from West Africa had already built one of history's greatest civilizations. His story reminds us that true wealth is not measured only by what we own. It is measured by what we leave behind. That is why, more than 7 centuries later, the name Mansa Musa is still remembered. Not simply because he was the richest man who ever lived, but because he left a legacy that outlived his fortune. And perhaps that is the greatest wealth of all. If you enjoyed this journey through history, consider subscribing for more stories about the people, events, and mysteries that shaped our world. Thanks for watching.